fact, used the rest of his life the best way possible. So the Prabhupada says Maharaj Pariksit, knew that he has 7 days to live. He knew that. He had 7 days guaranteed. But what about us? Some of us want to live 7 years, but we don't even know whether we have 7 minutes guaranteed. He knew when he could leave. We don't know when we can leave. So in one sense, the curse was beneficial for several reasons. One, who wouldn't want to leave the material world anyway after you find out what it is like here and what the spiritual world is like? The obvious choice is to go where you'll be happier, go where there's no anxiety. Maharaj Pariksit, Srila Prabhupada explains, could have overturned the curse. He had the power to if he wanted to. He chose not to. He chose not to. He chose to leave the administrative duties and dedicate his life. He left the kingdom to his sons. Maharaj Janmejaya was the oldest. He left the kingdom to him and retired, basically retired. But he retired by showing us that when you have more time, dedicate that to the Supreme Personality of Godhead. So he went to the banks of the Ganga, and of course, the sages with all the mystic cities, they knew what was happening. They showed up. A lot of sages of high quality showed up. And the sages at Naimisharanya also benefited after Shuddha Goswami heard the Bhagavatam and came to them. Pranam Maharaj said there were 80,000 of them in Naimisharanya. And then he made a funny joke about how our senses are so dull now. Because he spoke to 80,000 without using a microphone. He made that point. Now our senses are so dull, we have to use this. But at least these are things that are done by technology that we are using for Krishna service. And that's another thing too. When you have more time, dedicate to Krishna. When you have more things, use them for Krishna service. Find ways directly or indirectly to use for Krishna service. So all of these. Now, the sages are saying, all right, we know well that the age of Kali has begun. Well, we're 5,000 years into Kali now, since that time. So we are assembled here in the holy place to hear at great length the transcendental message of Godhead, and in this way perform sacrifice. So they perform a sacrifice by hearing. Srila Prabhupada says, this age of Kali is not at all suitable for self-realization using the methods, the golden age, silver age, copper age, Satya Yuga, Treta Yuga, and Dwapara Yuga. And then he goes on to explain self-realization in Satya Yuga, the golden age, lifetime of individuals, 100,000 years. The age itself was 1,720,000 years, and people were living 100,000 years, and good many of them performed meditation for 60,000 years. 60,000 years. 60% of that time they were using. Srila Prabhupada says, chant Hare Krishna Mahamantra 16 rounds. That takes a maximum of about 2 hours. Those of us that go slow, 2 hours. 24 hours out of the day, 2 hours. We use 1/12 of that time. That's only 8.5% of the day, not 60% like this we were using. Still, see, the mercy of a spiritual master is so huge. Still, we can go back to Godhead if we take this process seriously. The process has been what? It's like Krishna consciousness has been put on sale, literally. We can go back to Godhead with effort, little effort, but the effort, the concentration should be very good though. That's on us. That's on us. We're chanting 16 rounds minimum. We can definitely chant, it says minimum, which means you can chant all the way to 64 rounds if you want to. You have the time, do it. The other day, Chanamala Swami challenged us, says, chant 64 rounds and see what will happen. Just give it a try. One time if you can and see what will happen. I've done it once, and a lot of things happen. We won't get into details. A lot of benefits are there. Because Krishna says, "Ye atma papajante tam siteva bhajamyaham." The extent to which you surrender to the process, I will reward accordingly. And he's serious about that. Sometimes he jokes with the gopis and stuff, but in Bhagavatam, in Bhagavad Gita, he meant everything that he said. He wasn't playing. He wasn't playing. So the sages heard Srimad Bhagavatam. They are in the forest Namisharanya to perform sacrifice for the welfare of everyone. That is selflessness. See, selfishness is when people want to do things for themselves, for their own benefit. I'm talking generally, not just spiritually, just generally. A selfish person looks out for themselves and will tell you have good reason to look out for themselves, but everything is me, 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 me. This Maharaj Sabadi explains to his sons, I and mine, I and mine. They were being selfless, says, we have gathered here to hear at great length. This is for 1,000 years they were putting, and that way perform sacrifice. So, Srila Prabhupada has explained that in Satya Yuga, lifetime 100 years, 100,000 years, and the devotees do meditation, prolonged meditation. Treta Yuga, there's Yagya, 10,000 years, a lifetime person. Dwapara Yuga, 1,000 years. Towards the end of Dwapara Yuga is when Mahabharata began to unfold, right into Kali Yuga. Dwapara Yuga, 1,000 years. People do deity worship, extensive deity worship. And in Kali Yuga, we are blessed with a simplified method because difficulties are their maximum and they keep increasing. But when the difficulties happen, at least I'll speak for myself, that difficulties help to remind me I'm not home. The first thing. Because I know in the spiritual world I won't be going through such difficulties. The first thing, I'm not home. And so difficulties are to push us to be more determined to leave, to be more determined to leave. Now, Krishna is not only asking us to leave and prepare to leave by ourselves only, but also to help, just like the sages are doing. Srila Prabhupada and Krishna also want us to bring as many people to the path as possible. That's our selflessness. He's already been selfless, spending so much time, spending so much effort to come to the West, and this is also in obedience to the spiritual master, because the spiritual master, Srila Bhaktivedanta Saraswati Thakur Maharaj, asked him to come. First instruction, he obeyed it. He came, he spread Krishna consciousness, just like Lord Chaitanya wanted in every town and village. He accomplished that, at least in all the continents, it's there. And the Srila Prabhupada's disciples and then grand disciples and all of us that were fortunate enough to hear the holy name and take to the holy name are now doing this. So that's also for the welfare of mankind. The sages are performing this sacrifice of hearing for 1,000 years. He says, with time at our disposal, the way he put it, Sakshana, with time at our disposal, using the time at their disposal for connecting in Bhakti Yoga to the Supreme Personality of Godhead. So much we can learn. Our attention should be in Krishna consciousness. We should chant, not only on our bead bags to finish 16 rounds, but all of the time, even when we are not holding our bead bags, we should be remembering the Supreme Personality of Godhead through his holy name. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Now, the process has all kinds of challenges with it, even though it's clean. The challenges are what we go through in Kali Yuga. I don't need to describe to you the different things that are there, the different challenges. So Papa says, and Kali Yuga, 100 years, and then combined with various difficulties. The process is the hearing and chanting of the holy name, fame, and pastimes of the Lord, as he says in the purport. So he also says, regular hearing and recitation of Bhagavatam is the only way for self-realization. Bhagavatam is Krishna. Krishna is absolute. Everything about Krishna is Krishna. Krishna is absolute. So when we hear the Srimad Bhagavatam, it is purifying. But he said it one way though, regular hearing, very important. So just like the devotees of the Lord who are pure like to do, Machita Bhagata Prana Bharayanta Parasparam Katayantas Jamam Nityam Tushanti Charumanticha. In Bhagavad Gita. The devotees of the Lord who have understood that material life is not going to get them anywhere. Ultimately, you just do what's necessary. That spiritual life is what's more important. They talk about Krishna, their life, their very life air is connected with Krishna. They like to hear, they like to discuss, and that's how they become happy. And so the process goes, how can I be a good person? How can I be a good devotee? How can I have my, anarthas removed? The results are all, the answers are all there in Srimad Bhagavatam. But you hear one verse after another, after another, after another, then the purification begins. Because between the translation that Srila Prabhupada gives and the purport that he gives, the answers are there. The answers are there. Now, I don't know about you, but many, many times I have questions in my mind, then I hear something, you hear a lecture, and then the answers come. Several times this happens. So Krishna is aware. The Lord is in the heart. So the Lord is seated in our hearts. From him comes knowledge, from him comes remembrance, from him comes forgetfulness. The Lord is with us all of the time. Now, what do we do? Well, Sri Prabhupada has told us we need to hear, we need to chant. That process, when we take seriously, is what purifies other processes that we do. We have 9 processes we know. Offering obeisances, worshiping the Lord, praying, becoming the Lord's friend. That is offering our hearts in love to the Lord, as the Lord's friends. The Lord's servant, das anudas. Atmanivedanam, surrendering everything. And the more we surrender, the more we realize that life becomes far more manageable. Believe me, it works like that. Sometimes we want to make our own decisions. That's all right. We've lived our life that way for a long time. And so to switch from making our own decisions to, dear Lord, let all the decisions come from you, or let it be approved by you. It's a process. It takes time, but it is in fact what would make us happy in the end, what would make our lives much, much more, I don't want to say controlled, but smoother in our lives than we can do. And so it's a question of remembering and regular hearing about the Supreme Personality of Godhead, and life just flows and flows and flows. See, Papa says, we do any other thing, it's a waste of time. You don't give any tangible results. So Sri Prabhupada reminds us, we go from Bhagavad Gita, broadcast the message of Bhagavad Gita, of Lord Krishna's message, and then that being well established, then we go to Srimad Bhagavatam, and it also says, for further enlightenment, Chaitanya Charitamrita. Chaitanya Charitamrita is a lifestyle of devotees after the understanding has come from Bhagavad Gita and then Srimad Bhagavatam. So, what are some of the pitfalls? Well, the greatest difficulty it's been explained to us, comes from our own false ego. Putting ourselves in the center rather than putting Krishna in the center. Putting Krishna in the center is actually a process that begins from serving devotees. Krishna is happier when he serves devotees. Even in Christianity, that we don't really pay attention to very much now, because by the mercy of the Lord, we are dealing with transcendental material. But Jesus said, if you do it to the least of these, you do it to me. Now, Krishna, of course, is the Supreme Personality. We are tiny, tiny fragmental parts of Krishna. But then if we serve devotees, Krishna is happier. Mad Bhakta Puja Vyadika, Krishna says, serve my devotee, and if you do that, I'm happier than even serving me. Yes, we have to serve Krishna, but Krishna doesn't need to be saved. We are the ones in trouble. We are the ones in trouble. We are the ones in the material world. Therefore, through his mercy and the mercy of the spiritual master, he wants us to come back home rather than deal with this difficult life. Everybody, wealthy, not wealthy, whatever situation you're in, there's always difficulty. As we know, there's old age, there's disease, we can't escape those. So, what is the difficulty that we have usually? It's our false ego. Now, so with your permission, we want to tackle some things about false ego and how it manifests. Sometimes we're materially successful, sometimes we're not materially successful, and still the false ego plays a role. So how does false ego manifest for the materially successful? Unfortunately, when people are successful, they think, well, I have the means to buy whatever I want. Therefore, I'm successful due to my ability. Everything comes from me. Now it's not from Krishna. We know in the Bhagavad Gita says everything emanates from me, but now people say, oh, I'm successful. And then Krishna says, Maya says, yes, you're successful. The things that come from that byproducts, one becomes arrogant. Sometimes you try to correct them, you won't accept it. Sometimes it goes worse. The feelings become feelings of insensitivity. Sometimes people try to exploit because they have the power. You control others. And of course, they're condescending. They look down on other people, especially those who are not successful. We have our group. We have our group of rich people. We meet in this place and we talk. The rest of the poor people, well, too bad. That's life. Insensitivity. So that's false ego. Usually that gets to people who are materially successful. But what about when there's failure? Sometimes now we'll just stay with devotees. Sometimes when devotees, they get called to do something and, well, I'm not sure how to do this. What about if I don't do it well and devotees see how badly I did and I might be, well, embarrassed. So then they begin to be fearful. And sometimes it gets to a point where even the service, they don't want to do it anymore. Same reason where I'm not doing it well, and people might talk about me and people might backbite, and so I don't want to keep up the service. Well, we do make mistakes. We're not failures. Krishna says, do the activity to the best of your ability and leave the results to me. So if we're fearful of doing the task that we're supposed to do because the results might not turn out the way we want, that's actually our false ego. Krishna already says the results are not in your hands. He told Arjuna several times, you just fight. The results are not in your hands. So we do things to the best of our ability. That's all. If we begin to be fearful of how it will come across, that's actually wanting to control the results. And that way, that's also, indirectly, our false ego. That's playing into this. So, and sometimes it gets so bad, people get depressed. That's when you take it to really extreme. You get depressed. So false ego can jump out in success, and false ego can also jump out in failure. As a matter of fact, in institutions, these are some of the notes that I took from Bhakti Maharaj, my Guru Maharaj. So sometimes some institutions fail because of previous success. Now, how can the institution fail when it's been successful? Now, how that can happen, it's very subtle though, but it can happen where you have a situation where in the past you've done things a certain way and been successful at it. The results have been good, right? But the world is changing. The world does not stay the same. So if we use the same methods 10 years later to do it and it doesn't work, you go, why? I've used this over and over and it doesn't work. Now you're not keeping up with the changes, especially materially. The mantra will stay the same, no question. That never changes. But the actual things that you do, especially when you apply the material things to serve spiritually, you have to be sensitive to the changes and adjust accordingly. Otherwise, previous methods that were used to be successful can in fact cause failure later on if you stay with the same methods. So we have to be really, which means we have to be very open-minded. Unfortunately, open-mindedness. So many times you say, well, I've done a certain thing a certain way. And it happens in temples. I've done a certain thing a certain way. And that's the way we've done, that's the way we're taught. But then the life is changing. So how can you stay with the same thing and expect there's going to be results? And then the manager, you start butting heads with the management because some of the management members have realized that there has to be a change. But we are stuck in our ways from time, and the ways work. There's no question. The reason is because they worked, but they worked in the past. Are they going to work now? Well, now you have to look at it again. That's the issue sometimes. And so that's an indirect way of saying, well, I know how it works, therefore I won't change. Well, that is, in fact, the decision we're making that may well connect with our false ego. We have to be open to change. Actually, many devotees have done that now. That's wonderful. Otherwise, we won't be a Zoom. Huh? It's a new way of teaching now. It's one of them. So, how does false ego kick in when we are by ourselves? Our mind says, you're the best. You are the best in everything you do. That's our false ego. We feel that we don't need anyone else. We become comfortable with the fact that I make my own decisions. And again, when you are with the group, because this is community. And when a person makes a decision based on themselves alone, Maya may use that to have all kinds of differences come up, and then the differences will lead to disturbances, sometimes out and out quarrel, disagreement, sometimes reactions from it is, I'm not doing the service anymore, all of that. I know better. So we have to be very careful not to let the mind dictate what we like without being sensitive to others, because our services are connected to everybody else's. How does false ego kick in when with a lot of people? We talked about just by ourselves. Now, how does false ego kick in with a lot of people? Say, family members, or even devotees in general. Sometimes we want to be noticed. We want to be adored by everybody. We want to be a showman. We don't have the sensitivity. And sometimes we try to manipulate people also, especially if we're popular. We want to show that we're better than most people, and we're clamoring for popularity. So all these things, and Sri Prabhupada has talked about it in Bhagavad Gita chapter 13, text 8, where Krishna is describing what knowledge is. Text 8 through 12, he says some qualities that he listed. Sri Prabhupada translates Krishna saying, first thing, amaniva, humility. Humility. When you want to be adored by everybody, when you want to manipulate people, that's exactly the opposite of humility. We're not humble when we do that. Now, this is a little bit sensitive, but we gotten that age, so we'll talk about it a little bit. How does false ego kick in when you're elderly? Sometimes we go through so many pains because the body is giving us pains. And so the mind may say, well, see, the body is it used to be wonderful 30, 40 years ago. You could do so many things. You can't do that now. So my body is useless. So I should give up. Don't do anything at all. Everybody understand I'm an old person. That's why I don't have to do anything. Hmm? When in fact, at the back of our minds, our intelligence is, but there are some things that doesn't involve using of the body so much. The mind is there. The hands can do a few things, and that would be wonderful service. Oh, my body is useless. I can't do all and all and all. And then you leave services that even in the old age we can do. That's how false are going to do that. Let Maya tempt us to get away from service that we still can do, even though the body has gotten older. Sometimes too, we say, I'm old, therefore you're young, therefore you have to respect me. And if you don't respect me, I'm offended by it. Yeah, the culture is there. The culture is there, true enough. But we shouldn't clamor for respect. We shouldn't clamor for respect. Yes, older people should be respected. In many cultures, that's there. And the culture that doesn't respect older people usually is a mundane culture, quite frankly. But the older people themselves shouldn't say, well, I deserve to be respected because I got older. That's the difference. If you say you deserve to be, you're not humble. You really aren't humble. When somebody doesn't respect you, you feel sorry for them. If it's family members, you can correct them. Yes, that's training. They're younger, you can do that in your family. But outside, if you make it a big deal, that's gonna be a situation where you feel, oh, well, this people are not respecting me. Next thing you know, I don't want to come around these people. These young people, they don't care about me. And next, yes, they don't care about you. Leave them. Let them do the service. They're stronger after all. Don't do anything. You're back to doing nothing. And now you're not serving. So see, tricks is this, they can play this, Maya can play this little by little, it gets you away from the things that you really need to do ultimately. And that is bhakti yoga, to serve. So, well, so how does false ego kick in when you're elderly? We talked about. So the opposite is how does false ego kick in when you're young? Well, my body is in great shape. I can do everything. I can do everything better because I'm stronger. My intellect is working. Therefore, we don't want to listen to anybody. I have all the answers. Don't want to listen to anybody because, I think I'm the best. Maya says, oh, sure, you're the best. How come people don't even realize that? Everything you do better than everyone else. You have the strength, you have the intelligence, and therefore, next thing you know, you really become a difficult person to deal with because you have the answers and don't want to listen to anybody. You have the strength to do it and you have the intelligence. We have to be community minded the whole time. Now, how does false ego kick in when we are atheistic? Well, that doesn't apply to us, but still, we run into atheistic people, how they behave. Atheistic people don't believe in God, so everything is for me. And it's so funny because every time I just hear atheistic people and way they carry on with things, says it actually is very unintelligent because all you have to do is look out. Look out your window, or if you're outside, look around you. There's nature. Did you put it there? Nature is so intricate. There's so much connection from one to another. There's so many processes that go on. You don't know how it came about, and you don't know why they work that way. All you do is just study in school, but you didn't make it. So obviously, if you're used to making things yourself, creating, Maguma called a second creation, you take from nature to make another product. There's no product that can be made by anyone, advanced or not, without going to Mother Nature first. You name any product. How was it made? It was made from something that ultimately came from nature. And since we didn't put nature there, everybody knows that things can't just appear out of the blue. Therefore, there has to be a maker. But that's atheistic people. No, everything is for me. They want to enjoy themselves. The false ego, they want to enjoy themselves without thinking of the consequences. Hmm? No belief in a maker that is more intelligent than them that put nature together. So that's also false ego from a theistic person. Well, how does false ego kick in when we're spiritual? I know better. I know the scriptures better than you do. I understand Krishna better than you do. Sometimes we do make mistakes because that is part of nature. So many times we hear lectures and just in speaking, the person that's speaking may make a slip. And then sometimes another devotee makes a big thing of it. But this one was wrong. And this one, sometimes mistakes do in fact happen. But how it's dealt with has to be done in a very, very sensitive way. If you point out the mistake and you point out the mistake in such a way that it is embarrassing, you have committed aparad to that devotee that's speaking. But sometimes you don't think, oh, for the sake of the Shastra, I know I'm spiritual, I know Shastra better. So, people might get it wrong. You have to point it out. Everything depends on how sensitive we are. Everything depends on how sensitive we are. Sometimes the solution to it is just simply ask a question. Ask a question about it. If the person made a slip, they will actually realize that. Sometimes if you're close to that person, you may leave it and later on have a one-on-one discussion with that person. Prabhu, as far as I remember, this is what I read in the Shastra. And this is not one-on-one now, not out, plain to everybody. No, this is, you bring it out like that. There's one devotee, and I'll talk about my own situation. One devotee, and it's this point about part of the Mahabharata, actually. When Indraprastha was finally put together, the Pandavas were kicked out of the Bhishmas and all that. Duryodhana wants to be crown prince. Yudhishthira is supposed to be crown prince, so then he divided the kingdom. They give him Counterprastha, which was not good, to barren. Krishna helps through Indra pours rain, the places Vishwakarma comes in. They made a wonderful, beautiful city after Indraprastha. So now there's going to be a coronation of Yudhishthira. Devotees were given services. People were there, the whole thing was festive. Of course, those in Hastinapur, Duryodhana, these folks, they were envious. But Yudhishthira was going to be crowned the prince. Assignments were given. Krishna took the assignment of the devotees that were coming in, washing their feet. And the first time I read it, it blew me away. So Krishna, yes, here's this another opulence of renunciation. When Krishna does menial things, that's his opulence of showing his opulence of renunciation. That is fact. So he washed the feet. Then later on, one of the devotees told me that he read in Bhagavad Gita, in Mahabharata, that he did in fact wash the feet, but he washed the feet of the Brahmins. So he wanted to make that point that he didn't wash the feet of everybody. But you see, in another scripture, it was just said generally, and he didn't specify which ones he washed the feet. So he wanted to let me know. He told me that, and he told me that in private, which I very much appreciated, right? So yeah, so some things that's happened. Now, I haven't checked Mahabharata to see whether he's right or wrong, but he brought it up. He brought it up, and I accepted it. Another situation I saw right in the temple room, a mistake was made by the person who was speaking, or at least there was disagreement, and the person came out and says, no, actually, it's not right, to the hearing of everybody. So that's definitely an embarrassing situation. The devotee that was preaching handled it very nicely. All he said is, okay, so Prabhu, I've heard it, he went to other things, and then the last point he made, he says, I heard the comment that you made about the mistake. This is what I read when I read, this is what I saw when I read the Shastra. You have read the Shastra. Maybe this disagreement, we can look at it again and then have a discussion. So then he just kind of weathered it like that. But you have to be careful sometimes. When we say we're spiritual, good, We learn, good. We've been told we should hear Bhagavatam regularly and also read. But how we behave is very important. We have to be sensitive to others' feelings. Otherwise, you may even say the right thing, but you say it in the wrong setting, in the wrong way, and it's wrong. And it's an apparat. And false ego does that. So false ego has weapons for any walk of life. We have to be very, very careful. So what do? Well, in order to clean anything that's negative, first you have to find where it is. You have to bring it out. Then you can clean it. This is individually now. We have to look for it and get rid of it. Because if we don't, it's like a snake. It will bite us. And then give us more and more and more and more trouble. So false ego is most difficult to deal with, as we told, because it comes in subtle ways. And of course, the weapons, we know them well, but they are the weapons of false ego. Lust, anger, greed, pride, illusion, and envy. Lust is I want for myself, selfishness. Love is when we want to give. Love gives and lust takes for himself. So the sages at Naimisharanya want to perform sacrifices for the welfare of mankind, which means they love mankind enough. They know Kali Yuga has all kinds of problems. It's problematic. By the way, Kali Yuga doesn't make itself problematic. People bring problems. And it gets worse and worse and worse and worse. And then, of course, the ages basically is categorized that way. Because even in Kali Yuga, it's going to get worse and worse and worse until Kalki Avatar comes later on, 432,000 years later, and then switches everything, kills all the politicians, all the Kshatriyas, and then starts over the golden age, Satya Yuga. So we have to be really, really, really sensitive to the way we behave towards each other. False ego can come in all walks of life, wealthy, poor, young, old, atheistic, spiritual, to all of that. Even in gender, it can also happen. We didn't get to that part. In gender, that also can happen. I'm a man, yes, yes, yes. Women, well, I don't know, we're stronger than them. We can figure out things better than them. They never understand us. On and on and on and on and on. But this is a community. And the mantra is the same, said by a man, said by a woman. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare. Hare Rama, Ram Ram, Hare Hare. So it boils down to this, mutual respect, because that is also a sign that we are mature and the society is an excellent society. This is how we behave, is how new people that come in see us and judge us as to whether they want to be in the society or not. So tall order, but it definitely can be done if we take these processes seriously. Hare Krishna. So the text, again, Srila Prabhupada translates that knowing well that the age of Kali has already begun, we are assembled here in this holy place to hear at great length the transcendental message of Godhead, and in this way perform sacrifice. Hare Krishna. And I apologize if some of you may have felt that I stepped on your toes, but it's a very sensitive subject to talk about when it comes to false ego. So let me throw that out there with all due apologies. Hare Krishna. Okay.
Thank you, Parikshit Prabhu, for really getting in detail with these descriptions of how the false ego infiltrates all our different positions in life. I'm going to take questions right now. We have one in the chat. I'll read out.
Okay.
When a person is doing a mistake, I tend to call it out of care for that person. How can it be called aparad? I'm not doing it to embarrass or to put the other person down. So please help me understand this concept of aparad.
Can you read it again? Read it again. Just for my sake.
When a person is doing a mistake, I tend to call it out. So they call out the person. Out of care for that person. How is that considered an aparad? I'm not doing it to embarrass or put the other person down. So how is that Aparad.
Okay. Very good question. Because obviously it's a sensitive thing. It depends on the environment, where things are, even the time that you call the person out. There has to be sensitivity. This is the bottom line. We're not saying that things can't be said, but how it's said and when it's said. Those are the two things that are very, very important. How it's said and when it's said. Sometimes if the situation is that that person is going to feel like, running into the first hole and hiding in because of the way things came out, just boom in their face. Especially when the bodies are there too and seeing that. So you got to be sensitive. You have to be sensitive. There are comments that have been made. And I remember one comment, and I won't name the devotee, a person that had an issue with, equipment, and temple is being open. I'm talking about Philadelphia. Temple is being open, made a comment, but we spent so many thousands on this, and why is it not working? It's just like, it may be a passing comment, but to the management, it's embarrassing. It's embarrassing. Okay. And so it depends. You got to think, first of all, the intelligence has to kick in. And how do you get the intelligence? You always pray. Make a short prayer before you say things. Right through your mind quickly. Sometimes I have to say something. I look at my switcher masters. They're either side of the computer every time. So if Prabhupada, one here, Gurudev on the other side. You can't be sure how things will come over. Sometimes you choose words. Now we'll be a little more specific. Sometimes you choose words, you think they're okay, but the person is sensitive and they get offended. Okay. So one of the ways is, if you really want to point it out, go around it. There's called an indirect way of saying things. You go around the issue, you make several references that back it up, and then you say, therefore, it could be done this way, or it could be done that way. Other times too, you can use the process of praising the person for what they do, because everybody does good work. There's always good work that somebody has done. And then you point out some things that you don't say you're doing it wrong. You don't say you're doing it wrong. You say what could be done that is right. It's mentioned the same thing. Rather than say you're wrong, you say it can be done this way. Prabhu, you've been doing so wonderfully here, but in this particular case, I'm thinking that it could be done this way. See, then you just, you pull yourself back. When you say you think, then it means you're not definite. You're thinking that, see, that's all light ways of bringing things back, and use the suggestion rather than hitting the person with you're wrong. The suggestion is you could do it. Don't say the suggestion, but Prabhu, you could do it this other way, this way. This is the way I was taught. It's also very powerful. You take it to the third gen. I was taught this way. But all things considered, you do such nice work. But in this particular case, the way I've been taught, this is the way I was taught to do. Therefore, you could consider it if you want to. They leave it like that. So it's all on how you say it, though, because you should have a mindset that, don't say things when you call out, don't say things in such a way that the person is going to feel small. That is saying the right thing. It's called saying the right thing the wrong way. You offend the person. You make them not feel good about how you said it. So you can praise, and then you can, whatever you want to say it in a suggestion form. What is right? It could be done this way. It could be done this way, like that. But be sure to praise the person also. And the pure devotee is done all of the time. I'll give one example, and then we'll maybe go to another question. There are more questions. Uttara, the mother of Maharaj Pariksit. When Ashwatam threw up a master and it was coming at her to destroy the baby, the last of the dynasty of the Pandavas, Ashwatam was so evil, he was determined to wipe out all of them. If I can't get the Pandavas, then I know I can get the last one that's coming, Maharaj Pariksit, the grandson of Arjun. What did Uttara do? Uttara appealed to Krishna. He said, Krishna, I'm in trouble. No, she started by praising Krishna first. Krishna, you're the supreme personality of Godhead. You're the supreme mystic. Even though the Brahmaster was coming, she still praised Krishna before she told Krishna what the problem was with her. So this point, it seems like it's not much, but it's quite important. The pure devotees do it all the time. Many, many, many instances you will see, they will praise the person and then talk about the issue. So if you're going to correct, also do the same thing, because devotees do bhakti yoga. They do, it's helpful. It's helpful. There's so many good qualities are there. So use that and then go into a suggestive way rather than calling out the person what's wrong. Suggest what's right, and then you can end it with even more praise. Hare Krishna. That way you butter it up, they won't get upset too much. Hare Krishna.
Here's a piggyback off of that question. How do you manage a situation where no matter how you communicate the information, you know the person will get upset?
Good question.
Or in past experiences with that person.
If you know the person will get upset, you don't want to communicate directly to them. Because you know that's what's going to happen. So what do? Well, there are devotees that a few devotees that the person does in fact respect. So you don't want to tell that person directly what it is that you're going to say, because you already know they're going to get upset. Tell somebody else that person respects. Describe it to them and have that person speak for you, speak on your behalf, rather than you go tell them. Because if you already put the sentence, you say it, they're going to get upset. So you shouldn't be the person to say it. But it has to be said, though. So then you go to somebody that person would respect, looks up to, and then say, and then have that person that is respected like that, say on your behalf. That's how you get around that, as far as what I know. Hare Krishna.
Before we take Mother Vatsala's question, I wanted to ask a follow-up question. What role does observing Vaishnava etiquette come into play with regards to correcting others?
Vaishnava etiquette coming.
Yeah, with regards to dealing with, say, seniors dealing with juniors, juniors dealing with seniors, and then I guess among equals, as we know.
That's a whole lecture in itself.
But just in summary, I guess more in relationship to, I guess, like as juniors and seniors interact with each other. Correcting a senior, even though it may appear that they may be doing something incorrectly. How should that be approached?
When a junior feels that the senior has done something wrong, but only way I know of is, and I use that, ask a question. Ask a question. The power of asking a question is, if you ask the question, and within that, your doubt is there, right? But you put it in a question form, though. That allows the senior to answer the question. If they answer the question and the correction needs to be made, that person would answer the question that way, make the correction. Sometimes the senior knows a bigger picture from the experience that the junior doesn't know. And the junior thinks, well, based on this, the senior must be wrong. If you hit at the senior, he's a huge apparat, automatically huge apparat. Vaishnava apparat won't take you back to Godhead. Therefore, if you ask a question form, then you let. I'll give one example. In Chaitanya Charitamrita, so Lord Nityananda was in Navadvip, Lord Chaitanya was in Navadvip. So Brahman realized that Lord Nityananda, that was preaching the glories of the holy name and the chanting, he had so much jewelry on him. Supposed to be Brahminical, and there's so much that he's carrying, and this Brahman's mind got disturbed about it. He did not go to Lord Nityananda, which is very smart. Lord Nityananda Avadut. He probably in the kingdom, but he went to Lord Chaitanya. Now, he went to Lord Chaitanya. The point, though, is he brought up the issue of, aren't we supposed to be, in Brahminical, we're supposed to be quite humble in the way we speak and how we carry ourselves. And he was telling Lord Chaitanya, but he put it on himself. the Brahman put it on himself that I'm the one that's confused about how Lord Nityananda is carrying himself. I'm the one that's confused. But he still asked the question though, because he was saying in it was the fact that Lord Nityananda has so much on him. That's opulent. So he asked, please help me, Lord, because I'm confused about this situation. Lord Chaitanya answered the question. There are 3 pastimes he put before. Finally, he realized that basically, so I have to answer because Lord Chaitanya answered. The answer in one sentence is, Lord Nityananda is in a class by himself. Don't copy him. That's all. that's how he put it. But he went, because the Brahman went to Lord Chaitanya, who could have spoken to Lord Nityananda, right? He knew that. He didn't go to Nityananda directly. He went to Lord Chaitanya and then put it in the question form and says, I'm the one that's confused about it, so help me. That's how I went around it. Hare Krishna.
Thank you.
Hare Krishna Prabhu. Hare Krishna Prabhu. Humble pranam. Humble pranam. Glories to Srila Prabhupada.
Hare Krishna.
Prabhu, thanks for the class. I joined a little late. I have some experiences for a long time. Some people, even in the family situation or with friends, their issue is, I shouldn't point out to them. I have my own faults too. They don't start anything with the good intentions or good qualities about a person. They always have something always bad to say about someone. How can we rectify that? I mean, we have been in the Krishna conscious for a long time, and we also heard a lot of aparad and other things. How do we handle that when person does not have something nice to start out with or something nice to say? Everything comes out as a complaint. How do I appreciate that person? How do I show my affection to the person? I mean, it's very difficult even within the family situation. They always want to complain first instead of saying 1 or 2 good qualities about that person.
So we'll start with an example that happened to Srila Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur Maharaj and his disciple. So one disciple, similar to what you're saying, one disciple came to the spiritual master, which is Srila Prabhupada's godbrother. A disciple came to Srila Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur Maharaj to complain about another devotee. He does this, he does that, this, everything negative. So Srila Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur Maharaj listened to the devotee. And when the devotee was finished, then he asked, so is there anything positive, good about this devotee? Which he took up by surprise and this is a guru asking, so you can't say no, right? So just go, all right. But yes, the devotee plays Mridanga very nicely. That's true. He's a good Mridanga player. So the Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur Maharaj says, so why didn't you say that about the devotee also? So all you had was to say negative things. This is just to preface it. We're going to get to this. Yes, some people say negative things about others. It's one indication. They themselves aren't happy. First of all, we talked about the ego problem, right? They think they know everything. Yeah, that's there. But they themselves are not happy. The thing is, if you say negative things, you're not going to be happy yourself. So when they say negative things, then we'll talk about negative things when they say about someone else, which is when they're gossiping, okay? How you handle that. It's happened to be also when somebody came and just like with my senior, and this went on and on and on and on in the post office of all places. He went to mail letters and he sees me there and he goes on and on and on and on about problems. All right. That one is very similar to what Srila Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur Maharaj said. So, all right. So you say you have acknowledged, I've heard you. Yeah, there are concerns, but no, Prabhu, this devotee does this other thing too. He's the one that wakes up the deities. He's the one that does this. He's the one, you drop your voice though. You don't fight back because then very, very important to drop your voice. Very important to drop your voice and speak softly, okay? And bring all these positive things. And then you say, well, we are in the material world. We all have high nature, we all have lower nature. Yes, the lower nature may be there, and you have so eloquently described it to me, but the high nature is also there. So now, what can we do to help this person's lower nature. Very powerful. You touched it right back at the person that said the negative thing. What can we do to help this particular devotee that has all of these things that are negative that you pointed out? Now they have to think about a better thing to do. If they do this, if they do that, if they do this, and if they walk away and say there's nothing good, well, the conversation is ended. And they themselves realize that it should have come to you to say this. Otherwise, what can we do means turn around and say solutions. So you bring some things, yeah, every problem has a solution. When there's a will, there's a way. So now you pointed out some things that we could do. So we can talk to this person that has negative feelings, right? Maybe, no, actually it's better if both of us go and we say some things. Same way. How are we going to think about that? All of these negative things, no problem. We just start by praising. So many good things you have already said, the good things, so we'll start with that. And then the same thing. So other things, those are the negative that. You do the suggestive way. You can do it this way, you can do it that way, you can do it this way, you can do it that way. My Papa disciple, my god aunt, Mother Kalini, Gidanagri. I was there in the mid-90s, just initiated, didn't know much, had never lived in the countryside before. I was living in the city, and the different things I've done, and Gidanagri, so many things, we're just learning. So I did so many things wrong, as you might imagine. So Mother Cleaning one time sat me down and said, all right, so picture, you do this, you do that, you do this. And everything that she was saying was the suggestion for the things that I was doing wrong in the service. Okay, she pointed out, and then when she finished, she said, it would be good if you bear this in mind. That's how she ended it. We're talking now about mild words, choosing mild words. So also very, very important. Mild words are words that don't make the person upset. There's an art to it. And if you listen to Prabhupada also uses sometimes, of course, he get the my bodies, he says they're rascals. He came right at them but he's good, he can do that. When he talks about devotees, what is wrong, Prabhupada has said several times, for devotees, he says, if we do this, it will not help us. He's used will not help us. You listen to his lectures, he talks about it. Will not help us. He says it's wrong. But he doesn't say it's wrong. He just says, the body says will not help us. So mild words are also very, 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 very important that you use. And that's how you bring things without really getting yourself into an apparatus situation. Now, okay. Hare Krishna. Any more?
Thank you, Prabhu.
I'll take one more question, Prabhu.
Krishna Prabhuji, Dandavat Pranam. Prabhuji, very, very, very nice, session, and you had lots of contents full of nectar. You started very good. It was just starting with the Parikshit Maharaj. Parikshit Das Prabhu is giving, Parikshit Maharaj.
I'm just seven of a seven. My spiritual master gave me that name. So go ahead. Anyway, yeah.
Course, that Parikshit Maharaj was having 7 days certain. That is, that was, but we do not know for a 7 second or 7 minute we have that or not. So we have to keep chanting. So Prabhuji, one question related to other thing, like in Naimisaranya, so thousands of sages, approx 80,000 or 88,000, whatever the number, they were assembled, and Saunaka Rishi was leading, and they were asking question to the Sut Goswami.
Yeah.
So as per trend in India, like once the yagna started, sacrifice has started, so that should not be stopped, never stopped. Like in the Bhagavatam also, when like Daksha was chopped up his head by Brittasura, right? So when Lord Shiva sent that, So after the killing, killing of the Daksha also, means chopping of the head also. Then again that yagna started to to complete that yagna. So here different I have heard. So that's what I'm trying to clarify here. Like some people say that 1,000-year yagna started and it is stopped in middle. But somebody, more and more people say like yagna was started, it was going for 1,000 years. In between, like in India, we have also seen, I have personally seen, yagna will be going on in between, in the noon time or middle of the day time, there will be preachings going on. Because yagna is the Sankirtan yagna, it's not only sacrifice. So there will be kirtan also going on, different variety will be there. One preaching will be there, one kirtan will be going on with mirdanga and kartal and everything. And morning and evening that havan and all will be keep on going on. So how was the scene? I am trying to understand, Prabhuji, whether the yagna was stopped, only this preaching was going on, question answer, or those all things were going in parallel. Please focus on this, Prabhuji.
What, as you were speaking, the thought that came to me was a situation which is described in the 11th canto of Srimad Bhagavatam. The Navayogendras and Maharaj Nimi. Okay, the Navayogendras, the 9 out of the 100 sons of Maharaj Sabri. So they were going around just like now the Muni goes around, just like Kumar is going around. They preach, the Krishna consciousness and convert people. So Maharaj Nimi was actually having a sacrifice, and in the middle of a sacrifice, they showed up. The Navayogendras showed up. That's what it is in the 11th canto. What did he do? Maharaj Nimi do? He interrupted the service, the yagya. He interrupted the yagya, welcomed them, guests has come, and they knew the yagya was going on and they came, right? So I'm just talking, basically, in other words, I'm just letting you know how Maharaj Nimi, who should know better and how to do things, handled it. So when the Navayogendras, pure saints, sons of Maharaj Shabbadev came, he stopped the yagya, he welcomed them, and then the yagya got switched into, please preach for us. You are 9, I have 9 questions, 1 for each one of you, okay? So he asked the questions, and a good part of 11th canto, and that part, they describe, I forget the chapter, each one of them takes a long time, a good amount of time, to answer their questions to the very end. Now, Bhagavatam does not say that the yagya continued. I don't remember it mentioned that, but I would assume, and this is very difficult sometimes to speculate, because the yagya was going on. But the point, though, is because of their importance, the Maharaj Nimi saw it that way. He literally interrupted the yagya just to accommodate the 9 Yogendras. So it varies the situation, but I know definitely that sometimes, depending on who has come, it can be, it can be. You talked about Daksha. When Daksha entered, the first yagya, that later on, the whole problem, people got up. No, Shiva didn't get up, but it's also an interruption. He himself came as, everybody just tried to give him. This is the beginning of that particular pastime, when Daksha showed up looking very effulgent, and everybody got up. And of course, Lord Shiva is on a higher level than Daksha, and he didn't get up. But it's also, in a sense, an interruption too when he came in. So these things do, in fact, happen. It depends on the circumstance, though. Depends on the circumstance, very much so.
Yeah, fine, Prabhuji. Thank you, Prabhuji. Thank you for
highlighting.
Very, very, very nice class you gave us today, for all the generations too, for all the yugas too. Thank you very much, Prabhu. It's a lot of things. Yeah, like Ram Sham Prabhu said, that Parikshit Maharaj was the reason for the Bhagavatam. And you are giving us these classes. Parikshit Prabhu. Thank you very much.
I just share what I learned.
That is we
We need to hear
We
from
need
each
to
other.
learn from senior devotees like you. That's all. Thank you very much.
Guru Maharaj's mercy and Srila Prabhupada's mercy.
And you, we got your mercy too through you.
I don't take credit. I just
Through
report.
you, Guru Maharaj, everybody's mercy.
That I would say, yeah. Through them, I'm speaking. Through them. That I can accept.
So for all the yugas and all generations, you gave that. Thank you very much.
Krishna's mercy. Jai. Glory to Prabhupada.
Parikshit Prabhu, our gratitude to you for spending
Krishna's mercy.
with us and teaching us on these most important subjects. Thank you to all
Sensitive.
the devotees.
Thank you. Thank you so much, Prabhu.
Krishna.
Delicate and important
Hare Krishna.
subjects.
Yeah.
Jai.
And thank you to all the devotees that have tuned in this morning and
Thank you.
nicely asking the questions. Tonight we have our Bhagavad Gita happy hour, 5 o'clock to 5:30. Please join us for that if you can. If not, we'll see you back tomorrow at 7:50.
Thank you.
Srimad Bhagavatam class as we resume.
Thank you.
Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna. Thank you so much. Thank you very much. Appreciate all the things. Thank
Hare
you.
Krishna, everybody.
Hare
Hare Krishna to
Hare
all the
Krishna, Prabhu.
devotees. Thank you, Prabhu.